So someone did reach out and ask if I could talk about the song Sentient Walls off the new Valacia record. And I don't know if it would be great for me to do a breakdown of that song because I barely wrote any of it. It's actually mostly Alex's composition. Maybe he could make a video about it. I instead thought that I could do a video about Stubborn Sun, which is kind of a song that we wrote together. And I wrote pretty much all the lead part, slash know all of the lead part. So I figured I could go through it and explain kind of how we went from having just the rhythm guitar part to having the rhythm and the lead part. And in the process, maybe you could learn a little bit about how lead guitar parts are written. So yeah, let's start with the song. I'll play it for you really quickly, and then we'll just go into a quick breakdown. So the song starts with this lead section, which is like a... I wanted to do something that felt strummed because at first we were doing kind of more of a black metal-y feel there, and then we realized it didn't quite fit the rest of the record, so we moved it into more of like a top-down, pop-punky sort of approach. I didn't really change the notes that I was playing in the process because I figured it still worked. But that's why it has that like kind of very high and like close harmony sound to it with the moving upper voicings. All I did was listen to the chord progression that Alex plays, which is pretty simple, and I think it starts on an open. And wanted to just write stuff that harmonized with that, so it's all in the same C minor scale that he was writing in when he wrote the rest of the song. I just wanted something that would complement it. The other thing I was kind of trying to pay attention to was this idea of contrary versus parallel and oblique motion. I kind of wanted the voicings that I was playing to move in the opposite direction at times, the parts that Alex was playing, because that can create more interesting harmonic complexities. I also wanted to be playing something that was higher up in the range than what Alex was playing. So if he's playing lots of like, kind of like lower down chords, then I want to be higher up on the neck, so I'm out of his frequency range and I'm more audible in the mix. It's kind of like a classic conventional approach to guitar songwriting. You can also write two guitar parts that overlap quite a bit. That's totally fine. I would say when you're mixing that, you probably want to try approaching things with a more hard pan sound, where instead of having doubled guitars, you have each guitar in one respective ear. So yeah, it just starts up here. And then the upper voicings move, so it goes... And then the second time it goes... Yeah, and that lower chord group that I play right at the end, I think at least kind of gives us a feeling that we're heading to the big open tonic that Alex and I play together after that, which is just a big open. Nothing special there. He wrote that with like quite a long ring out and like sort of a lonely drum groove, so I figured I could write something that had a little bit more of like a picked out arpeggiated feel to it, and it would have lots of room to breathe, so I came up with this. But he comes back in with this very picked out section immediately after that. So in order to not compete with that, I drop down into this single note that I just hold, and then I move it up to here. This next section gets a little like sonically complex, but I think it makes sense from the perspective of we're building toward a climax, and the next part is even busier. So the fact that we go from not so much going on rhythmically in the two parts to more going on is all right in my book. We're also keeping the voicings pretty far apart, and I have a chorus pedal activated as well, which sort of lightens and modulates my sound a little bit, makes it a little bit more ethereal, I guess. And that part has a hammer off in it, but other than that, it's pretty... And then... Which this is an arpeggio that I use in a lot of Valacia songs. This. It's like a minor chord, and it has a tritone built into it, or rather a semitone built into it. In order to get out of that section, I play that chord one last time, so... And I just give it a classic little harmonic right at the end, just to bring it to a one final triumphant moment before we crash into the chorus, which has a finger tapping section in it. And the finger tapping section is pretty basic, actually. And the real benefit of writing finger tapping sections is that you can write something that sounds way more complicated than it actually is to play. I'm just doing a slide up, hammer off, hammer on here, and then two hammer on sound here. So the fact that you're doing this hammer on, hammer off thing, which is very common in post-hardcore related genres, makes it seem like you're playing quite a lot of notes when you're really not doing too much. And I'm only playing one string, which is pretty basic in terms of finger tapping. And then the second part of it is... You'll notice that the rhythm is slightly different there. I don't start in the exact same point of the phrase with my A tapping pattern and my B tapping pattern. It's not a terribly complicated song. There's not really too many parts to it. But this is one thing that I kind of thought would add a little bit of rhythmic dynamicism to the situation, because I'm not starting off in the same spot. It's a little jazzy, I guess. It's not terribly jazzy, but there's something syncopated about what's going on. And that part just A-B's right at the end with this other section, which is really simple and basically just constructed of tritones just to create a lot of dissonance and texture on top of the breakdown feel that Alex plays. And that's... It's just... Not a whole lot going on there. I recommend using tritones a lot. I think they sound fun, especially in lead patterns. Especially if you're working in a way that rhythmically plays off of what someone else is playing. Again, it fills up space really nicely, and it can sound a lot more complicated than it actually is because you're playing off of somebody instead of playing in unison with them rhythmically. So suddenly everything seems a lot busier. The theme for this whole song sonically is that it's pretty busy, maybe one of the busier ones on the record. I really like it. It's on the B-side, so maybe it doesn't get as much attention. I think it's a really fun bop. It's pretty short, so it gets in and gets out really quickly. When you're writing your own lead parts, I think it's just good to keep in mind kind of a lot of the stuff that I talked about in terms of like, you want to be playing something that's rhythmically different from what the rhythm guitarist is playing. You want to be playing something that's harmonically different and probably away in the upper range from what the rhythm guitarist is doing. And another thing I would say is you don't always have to be making it complicated. Like, this song is one of the busier ones that I have, but it's good to lay back sometimes, I think, unless you're really trying to lean into being like a super technical math rocky sounding band, giving space for lyrics, giving space for the rhythm guitar to shine through, giving space for the rhythm section to shine through is like a critical part of good songwriting. So the lead guitarist is not always the person who's like playing the most complicated part. In fact, they're oftentimes playing the least complicated part, but it might have some of the trickiest little bits and pieces in it. That's kind of how I view the division of labor, is that like the lead guitarist in a way sort of exists to add like the special sauce that would otherwise be just like too tricky to access. The rhythm guitarist really holds it down and sets the tone, I think, for what the mid-range harmony is supposed to sound like in the song. So hopefully that was informative. You can go out and try and write a 2-part guitar song if you want for yourself and see how you like it. You can check out this song if you like it. I didn't really mean for this to just be like a self-promotional thing. I thought it would be good for you to get a perspective on like how I wrote the song and what I wanted to do as well. Thought you might enjoy like the perspective on what my motivations were for writing different sections. But yeah, it's just a matter of like building into a busy kind of like dissonant cacophony, kind of like that final release of the breakdown and that catchy chorus that we got going on.